Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We have people joining from all over today, so welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are really excited to have you here. We're going to take just a minute and let people get logged in, see the numbers going up. So we will let everyone get settled. We're going to take a few minutes to before we jump in, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. Feel free to use the chat or Q&A throughout the session to submit questions or share your personal experiences. We want this to be an interactive session. Today's session is being recorded, and the recording will be sent out later today along with a brief survey to help us continue creating webinars that are relevant and valuable to our clients. During today's presentation, we're going to walk through how we think about building industry-ready talent, and more importantly, how that impacts your team as you grow. A lot of what we'll share comes directly from what you're seeing across industries and where onboarding starts to break down and teams feel stretched. And with that, I'd love to introduce our speakers for today. So please welcome Amy DeLong and Caprice Allen. They've got some great information to share with you today, and I'll hand it over to both of you to share a little bit more about your backgrounds before we get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Hey, everyone. I am Amy DeLong, and I am the Senior Director of Talent Development here at DCX. And I focus on how we design learning experiences and development pathways that help our team members grow in their roles and build long-term careers. I'll pass it over to Caprice.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caprice Allen, and I am the Senior Customer Success Manager here at DCX. Today, we are going to be talking about how I work closely with clients day to day, helping support their teams as they grow and scale. So, between Amy and I, we really get to see both sides of this, how talent is developed internally and how that directly impacts the client experience and overall team success. All right. So here's a quick overview of what we'll cover today. We'll start by talking about some of the challenges companies are facing right now when it comes to hiring and onboarding and where there can be things to break down. So we'll walk through how DCX academies can help build more confident, capable team members. We'll also give you a little behind the scenes look at how academies are built, and then we'll wrap up with the impact we've seen on onboarding growth and long-term success. So one thing we all the time see is that success of new hire really impacts the success of the business overall. Okay. So when onboarding is inconsistent, performance becomes inconsistent. If ramp time is slow, it can delay productivity and an extra pressure on the rest of the team. And when there's a lack of structure, team members don't feel confident, and that impacts engagement and retention. We actually have worked with a client recently who was growing quickly and bringing on several new team members at once. Everyone was doing their best to train and support the team. But because there wasn't consistent onboarding structure, people were learning differently depending on who trained them. Questions were slipping through the cracks, ramp time was slower than expected, and managers were getting stretched thin trying to support everyone. Once they started working with us, we introduced a more structured onboarding approach. Paired with training through our academies, the difference was noticeable pretty quickly. New hires became more confident faster, managers had more consistency across the team, and people were able to contribute sooner without feeling overwhelmed. So really, the goal is to help team members feel supported, confident in what they're doing, and able to impact sooner. And honestly, the challenges aren't unique to one industry. We're seeing them everywhere. Time to productivity has taken longer. Training can look different depending on who's doing it, which creates inconsistent onboarding experiences. Managers are stretched thin, especially during onboarding, so new hires don't always get the support they need right away. And over time, people can start to feel unclear on what success looks like or how they can continue growing. That creates a lot of friction at a time when companies are really trying to scale efficiently. This is where structured training can really make a difference. It helps build foundational knowledge early, which makes people feel more prepared and less overwhelmed. It can shorten ramp time so team members can feel like they're able to contribute sooner. And long term, it helps people feel more confident in their role and more supported in their growth. We saw this firsthand with a client who was scaling quickly and needed a new team member to ramp without putting additional pressure on leadership. Before introducing structured training, managers were spending a huge amount of time answering repetitive questions and retaining processes. Once we, once we paired onboarding with academy-based training, new hires came in with a much stronger foundation, asked about better questions, and were able to contribute much faster with far more consistency across the team. I'll hand it over to Amy to walk through a DCX Academies to support this approach.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caprice. So this is exactly with everything Caprice has shared. This is exactly why we built the DCX Academy. Building real practical skills that translate directly into the role and increase onboarding speed for our clients. And so I always share this story when I think back to my first few days and weeks in the promo industry. I realized how much industry specific terminology I had to absorb. It was all new to me. I didn't know what EQP pricing meant. I didn't know what decoration methods were in the promo industry, for example. And so a lot of this was learned through experience, which we all know takes some time. So our academy training is really going to allow our team members to expedite this process, and it's giving them 4 weeks of dedicated time to learn the industry they are going to be stepping into. And so though they're not yet experts coming out of our training, they are going to be coming out of the academy and be able to ramp up so much significantly faster. So I'll move on to the next slide here. So behind the scenes, when we're building our academies through DCX, it's a very, very collaborative process. We have subject matter experts that we bring in with deep functional knowledge of the industry. Our instructional designers are then shaping how that knowledge is delivered. And then we align that internally with both our internal teams and our clients. And so we're asking for input. There's so much of this work beyond and in the background building these, so that when we're ready to launch the curriculum, we are all very, very aligned and very strong about what is going to be taught through these. The development part of this process is very, very thorough, as you can see, and it does take a pretty significant amount of time to build these academies through a lot of working with different experts in each industry. And everything is built to be very practical and real world focused. So team members are not just learning concepts, but they're truly building skills that they can immediately apply. Again, we want to do a lot of hands-on activities through these academies. They're not just watching PowerPoints all day. Really want them to start understanding what they are going to be doing day to day in their roles. And so that's included in all the activities that we build throughout. Lots and lots of collaboration. All right, some fun photos to share. This is what the collaboration really looks like in practice. So you can see there's a ton of engagement, there's a ton of energy from our teams. This is really a big part of who we are. We want to create an environment where people feel supported, they feel connected, they feel excited to grow. One of my favorite parts about our academy programs, outside of just the technical training, is the professional development side. And we see this from our trainees. Our trainers really foster this throughout the time that our trainees are in training. They are excellent at balancing not only the technical aspects of the role, but also those soft skills. And as we know, both are going to be so important for a successful career. All right. So here is just a high-level overview, a little example of what an academy curriculum looks like. This is a promo academy week by week, and you'll see it structured into a four-week program, and it's really designed to help new team members build their industry knowledge and then those practical day-to-day skills before stepping into the role. So week 1 is going to be a heavy focus on the foundational industry knowledge. So things like promotional product terminology, supply chain basics, decoration methods, and then, understanding the general anatomy of a promo order. Next up, when we go into week 2, we start getting just a little bit more hands-on. So this is when we go more into, what are the sourcing tools we use in the industry? Let's talk about promo pricing. Let's talk about apparel, hard good orders, fulfillment, samples. And so just getting a little bit more into the day-to-day. And then week 3, we shift more into operational execution. So including, building presentations for your clients. How do we talk through, again, thinking through pricing, the different nuances of setup charges, rush charges, different things that may be out of the norm. And then again, talking through production timelines, order management, order entry proofing, all of those things that are going to happen throughout the order process. And then once we get to week 4, we're really focused on that full customer experience. So putting the full order lifecycle together, and then including different aspects like tracking orders, potentially touching on some company stores and how we build those to service our clients. Customer communication, again, what does that look like? And what does excellent customer service look like? And really, truly managing any projects from start to finish. So the goal is really to help team members ramp faster, feel more confident early on, and then again, create more consistency across your teams. With that being said, as kind of an example curriculum, we understand that industries are constantly evolving. There's always going to be changes and updates that we need to make to our curriculum. So my team is constantly doing refreshes. We're really looking at ways to improve our academy programs, both through client feedback that we receive, and then also just, we have touch points throughout the year where we're looking for new things in the industry and updates that we need to make within the curriculum so that our academies are really staying in line with the industry progress. Oh, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Sorry, guys. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, one important thing to call out here is the academies are not meant to stand alone. So they're really going to be most effective when we pair it with a strong manager environment. We have good, solid team integration, and then we have role-specific development after academy. So our academy is going to provide that early foundation, and it's a faster ramp-up period. But long-term success is really going to come from how they're supported within your team. And so again, I'm gonna take this back. I love telling my first couple weeks and days in the promo industry story. But I'm looking back on those first couple days and truly came in and didn't have that industry knowledge. I was super, super green in the industry. And I remember sitting on my office and flipping through the physical catalogs. And I know that was a really long time ago. We don't do those as often. And really just trying to absorb all of that industry knowledge as fast as I could. And so really our training is going to set up team members to be able to walk in day one. They're going to have that initial understanding of the industry, and you're going to be able to delegate those tasks so much faster to your team members right away. And so then in return, it frees up more time for you to focus on growing your business. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about how you can support your team as they're getting started and really work with them through that onboarding period. Really, I see there are 4 simple but really impactful ways to support your team member. And the first is start small. So focus on tasks, a few tasks in the beginning, first couple weeks. I like to say like 5 to 7. So start with those tasks that are going to make the most immediate impact for you. And build confidence with them in that task. So as they're learning them, as they're becoming then an expert in that group of tasks, then we can layer on more over time. I really like starting with just a handful of tasks, again, because it allows that team member to master those. It's going to give them confidence. So once they feel really in those tasks, they're going to then feel confident taking on more and layering on the complexity of their workload from there. Next up, I love the teach back method. And so this is something that we use a lot just to make sure things are really clicking. So when training, it's so helpful to first walk your team member through the process. Let's say screen share, talk with them, walk through it, and explain this step by step, and really just walking them through, hey, I do this next. And then next we go through this, and having the visual super, super helpful from that. And then once we have walked them through, ask them to repeat it back to you. So, okay, great team member, here you go. I'm going to pass it over to you. Walk me through this step, and just again, have them repeat back to you the whys of the step, and then the step by step to confirm their understanding. That leads me into number 3 here. Explain the why so they understand how that task works to connect to the bigger picture. This is really going to help them understand, how does what I'm doing really fit within the greater operation? And it allows them to then spot potential issues. So if they understand what the task impacts, they have a better ability to problem solve, think critically. If something out of the norm pops up, they're going to be able to take action on it. And then finally, it's so, so important we set clear expectations. So especially I like to say around communication and check-ins. be so clear on how you want your new team members to check in with you and how frequently. So if you expect them to check in via email or ask questions via Teams or calls or text messages, whatever it may be, really just be clear on what the frequency looks like and what the method looks like. Setting expectations on how you'd like them to ask questions, how you'd like them to share wins or challenges with you. This is going to help establish a really clear and open line of communication, especially in a remote work environment. And so I really think these four, they seem like such small actions, but they are truly, if we implement them and we're consistent with them, they can really dramatically change how quickly someone's going to be confident and effective in their role. It's really all about those first couple of weeks is, again, letting them become the expert in a small amount of tasks and then building it from there. And if they are confident, it's going to totally ramp up that on-ramp period and they're going to be ready to crush it for you. So I'm gonna wrap it up now and I'm gonna pass it back over to Caprice.
Thanks, Amy. That was great. All right. So for us, the support doesn't stop after onboarding. At DCX, we really focus on continued development, whether that's ongoing learning opportunities, engagement support, or helping create clear growth paths for team members. So we also provide tools and support for managers because we know they're balancing a lot. The goal is to make sure that our team members aren't just getting started, that they're continuing to grow and build long-term success. When all of these pieces come together, team members feel confident, they're able to move faster, they're able to start faster, they stay engaged, continue in progression, and managers feel better equipped to support their teams without carrying the entire onboarding process on their own. I'll pass it over to Katie to wrap us up.
Hey, thank y'all so much, Amy and Chris. That was amazing session. Now we're going to switch over to the Q&A portion. So audience, feel free to drop anything in the chat or the Q&A. We have some pre-submitted questions that we're going to get into, but of course, if you have anything, start sending those in, or if you just have any experiences you want to share, that's great too. All right, so we'll get started, and I apologize if I'm a little laggy, have some internet issues today, so apologies there. So our first question was, what can managers do day to day to better support new team members during those first few weeks?
Yeah, I can start. I think biggest thing is celebrate the wins is just as important as having the corrections. And what I mean by that is, again, we're like, our goal is to build that confidence in the first couple of weeks. And so just be intentional about saying like, hey, you did a great job with this. Like, fill up the bank a little bit before we take a deposit out. If we have some harder feedback, I think is always helpful. And then again, just consistent check-ins, I think is a huge thing. And just being able to really say, we're going to check in these days. This is the time I can commit. It's incredibly helpful. And it just helps again with that consistency through the first couple of weeks as we're onboarding.
I agree, Amy. Definitely would like to piggyback off the regular check-ins. That's definitely necessary. And then another thing that may seem just like a small uh, thing to do is just to make sure that your teamer feels like part of the team, right? When we feel like we're part of the team, we're more likely to ask questions right away versus feeling alienated. So if you can, just make sure you introduce them to everyone. Make sure you introduce them to the group. Make them feel welcome. You're going to notice a big difference there when they feel like they're part of your team.
Yes, I love that, Caprice. I think that's really important and a huge thing that we do on our team too internally, and you can feel the difference that makes. And sort of in addition to that, but on the other side, how do we at DCX help support managers during that onboarding process to kind of help guide them and be that support?
Sure, I'll start there, Amy, if you'd like. Um, You'll have someone like myself, a dedicated customer success manager who's there to kind of walk you through the day-to-day things. If you need, think of us maybe as like your HR manager. If you need anything and need to know anything, we'll be there to guide you along the way. And then there's also a dedicated Filipino-based team lead who's going to work with your team member directly every day. They're going to check in regularly with your team lead, with your team member to make sure that things are going well. They'll update you on things. So you have support here on the DCX side for sure.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit just from the talent development side. We are here to support it. We have an incredible talent improvement manager, MT, who is here to have, one-on-one sessions if a team member needs a little extra support. We also have a ton of additional education opportunities available through DCX. And so, as Caprice mentioned, between the CSM and the team lead, there's a lot of support to go to our team and say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit with this. Are there any additional resources that we can have to support our team member? And so biggest thing with our team is we want to make something available to help continue training. We believe in it and we want the training to continue outside of Academy. So certainly reach out and we will figure out a solution to best fit the concern or the issue that may be at hand right now. So
Perfect. And kind of on the academy side, how do the academies help reduce like pressure on managers and while still helping team members ramp effectively?
yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I kind of touched on it within the presentation, but I think you don't have to spend as much time at the start at ground or the starting point of zero, right? Like they're coming in with this knowledge of, okay, well, I understand how to price. I understand, let's promo specifically. They understand the concepts of the industry. So they know the verbiage, they can speak the talk, they know the processes. And so you're able to get them started sooner. There's still some training required, right, on specific processes at your company, but they're going to get there so much faster than as if you had to start from zero and say, we've got to talk about these industry specific concepts, right? They're already coming in with that knowledge. And so it's a lot more helpful to start there when you're trying to teach a process specific to your company that they already have that knowledge coming in. So it speeds it up quite a bit.
Yes. No, that's really great. And I think so we have a question that piggybacks on the academies. So can you talk a little bit about how the roofing academy was put together, like who was involved in it and how the information was gathered?
Yep. So we had a couple different subject matter experts that we worked with, some consultants from the roofing industry, people who have been in the industry a long time. And so the early stages, it's a lot of asking questions of, okay, what do you think if we had clients or we were placing roles, what would those roles look like? And so first we're identifying what would be the top roles that we could help support in the industry. And then from there, you sort of work backwards. So we build job descriptions and then we work backwards to understand, okay, if we're going to get someone ready to step into this seat, what does that look like? What tasks do they need to understand? What industry knowledge do they need to understand? And so from there, then we kind of fill out the sort of meat of the curriculum to say, okay, we've got to do this, this, this to be able to get them to meet this job description. So that's in a nutshell. But there's a lot of conversations with people that know far more about roofing than I certainly do, that help get us there. And then our team is excellent to get the pieces together, to fill in the curriculum that we need to get to in order to meet that certain job description for the role.
Thanks, Amy. That's super helpful. We have another question. Are you able to reveal any insights as to future roadmaps for the academies?
Ooh, this is exciting. Yeah, for sure. So, we are working on a couple of things right now. And I guess I won't share too much until they're fully rolled out, but I suppose I can share a little bit here. We are working on a couple academies, especially for promo, where we're trying to figure out some more advanced offerings and accelerated offerings essentially. So, how can we support the team members who have been through academy and they're doing awesome in their role and maybe they're a couple years in? Can we get them a little bit more education to really ramp up their experience and their knowledge? And so those are some tasks we're looking through right now. Also looking at potentially some smaller scale academies. So after, let's say we're hired and there's a new skill set that we need to add on, such as, maybe art or a little bit extra for accounting or something like that. How can we support that? So, yeah, I think right now, those are kind of the main two things we're looking at. And then, yeah, just for outside of that, we'll continue to build academies as we work into new markets and follow the model that exists for those. So
Yeah, that's all really exciting. A lot of new things on the way, which is really always good. All right, let's see what other questions we have coming in. Um, so this one is another one sort of about like the onboarding piece. So somebody said, what are some of the most common onboarding mistakes you see managers make? And kind of how do you help navigate with them to, you know, when they come across those?
Sure. So not to be repetitive, but definitely making sure not to make their team members part of the team, right? To have this separation between maybe internal employees and then their DCXers. We want to make sure that everyone feels united, make sure they all feel like they're integrated together. That's definitely a mistake that we can see that can cause some delays here. And then not having an onboarding plan. Listen, we get it. I know that it's not going to be always stick to the plan, but you want to have a structure of some sort for training of what your next steps are. What does today look like right after we have that kickoff meeting? What does the next week look like? What does the next month look like? What are your expectations for the next 3 months? Where are you expecting them to be? We want you to have at least an idea of where you are with that. That way we can work together to maybe figure out a plan if you're not sure of how to structure that. But definitely creating that high level overview of what you're expecting the next steps to look like.
Perfect. Thank you, Caprice. And we had another question. This one goes back to training. So, if we don't have this person's asking if they don't have their own training to offer team members, what would you recommend to complement the DCX training?
a great question. Um, I think so. We have a couple things that we can do to support. We have an incredible process excellence team that can help kind of document processes that a client has, and then create a PDF so that can support with training those processes. I think again, I think it's hard to give a very clear answer without knowing the specifics of the role and the specifics of the tasks there. But I would, if I'm thinking of setting up an onboarding plan and what that looks like for the first couple of weeks, I would try to identify again top 5 processes that if I could delegate those, that's going to make the biggest impact for my team. I'd start there. And then really keeping it simple. So when you're teaching these processes, really teaching them one at a time. So hey, team member, we're going to have a call and we're going to talk about this process today. I'm going to walk through it. And then again, that read back system we talked about is saying, I'm going to walk through it. Okay, now you repeat it back to me and really explaining the whys and then letting them get a couple repetitions in. So, okay, let's practice it. Let's get good at it. Great. We've learned that process. I feel confident there. Hey, we're going to do another one. We're going to walk through this one. And so, just being really like intentional about how many you're addressing or how many you're introducing at a time is really helpful here. Again, we want to get that person confident before we add more as much as possible. So start small. If we do those, if we start with one at a time, one a day, and then add from there, it really helps.
All right, thanks, Amy. And the next question is somebody who said um, they have an employee that is a little hesitant to speak up when they're confused or struggling. Just any advice on like how to help with that communication?
Yeah. Here's a couple things I do. It happens because people sometimes have a hard time admitting they're struggling. They don't want to show that they're not getting it. And so usually you can sense that, through the training, maybe the task, maybe there's been some errors or something, or they're not able to completely repeat it back to you. I think inviting the questions, and you can do that by saying, hey, a lot of people, I've seen people struggle with this process. It gets a little confusing here. How are you feeling about it? And like just giving them sort of the open invite to say, yeah, I'm kind of confused. I don't have complete clarity on this. Can we walk through it? Is always good. I think if you can give them like a specific and say like this could be challenging. How are you feeling about it? You're going to notice those things. And so, but just kind of phrasing it in that way. I think if you ask them, do you have any questions with anything? And you don't give them a specific, sometimes they'll just say, nope, I'm good. I've got it. And so it doesn't get that clarity you're looking for.
Yeah, and I also think that this is a good time to utilize sometimes if that doesn't work as well. Feel free to utilize your DCX customer success manager and your team leads. Like we're here to help. We're here to help have those conversations. Sometimes they're willing to maybe speak to us differently, and we can maybe ask it a different way. So we're here to assist with those conversations as well. If you ever feel concerned about training or concerned about your team member, we're here to help.
Thanks, Caprice. This question is about so somebody's curious, how would you recommend balancing the training, like culture and productivity, like all in the first few weeks? How do you like think about that balance of those three things specifically?
For sure. I think, yeah, this is where it's nice, like as you're kind of mapping the week, again, being intentional about the tasks and what you're going to introduce. And so, um, what I like to do again is we're training a new task, set really realistic expectations for them of what you're going to expect by the end of the week. And so, hey, we've taught you this. We're going to walk through it together today. Tomorrow, I'm going to have you walk through it, do it independently, and then I'll review it for you. And then next day, I'm going to trust that you've got this task, or once you feel like they're at that point where you can kind of let it go. Um, I think again, setting those really realistic expectations is important because of course the goal is to get them ramped up as soon as possible. So you want to give them the repetitions of doing the task is going to get them there faster. And so I think breaking up your time as much as you can, being really intentional about this is training time, afternoon is going to be the time where you're doing the thing, morning we're training on it, and just being really intentional with how that time breaks down.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And then, so just a few more that have come in. What advice would you give to leaders who feel like they don't have enough time to properly onboard new employees?
Hard. That's a hard one. I get it. I've been there. I would say um, onboarding, it's crucial. It's so important because the value of good onboarding is you're going to have a team member that will ramp up faster and stay with you a long time. And so I know it's hard to balance it, but it's almost, balancing it in the beginning is so worth it to get you this team member that's going to stick with you long term, and then we don't have to, go through the process again to get somebody new there. And so I think, again, it's about being super intentional with the time. And I also think sometimes we can ask our team member who's training, how do you like to learn? There's some people where I've been training them and I think I've got to train them a certain way. I think I've got to sit with them for a couple hours, but they may say, hey, I can figure this out. Will you just give me the app? I'm going to look through it. Tell me what I need to figure out. And then I can check in with them later. And they're like, yep, I already got it. I already solved it. And so I think be willing to be a little bit flexible with your training, understand the outcome you need to get out of it, but there's always a potential too that you can be flexible with some things. Everyone learns differently. So there every team member you train and you onboard is gonna learn things in a different manner. But understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are, understanding what are some things that I think they could independently go through and learn versus what are things that are going to be more hands-on for me. And being able to sort of, as we like to say, delegate from there, I think is really helpful. Another thing to think about too is if you have other members of your team that can help with onboarding, that's always great too to get that team member more exposure. So as Caprice mentioned, they're going to feel like more a part of the team if they're meeting others and other people are helping with tasks and sharing. So those are some strategies that could work. I know it's super hard. It's definitely an ask to onboard someone and it takes an extra effort. But truly believe, if you can get it right in those first couple of weeks, the payoff's going to be genuinely worth it.
Yeah, Amy, I agree. Those are great notes. Another thing to consider for the future is after you've done that first onboarding, we have a whole team here at DCX who can create SOPs for you. We can actually send in some training videos that you've recorded, that your team members recording while you're teaching them these processes. If they record them, we can send them into our documents team, and they can actually create full-blown SOPs for you that you can use later on in the future. That way, let's say you're onboarding a new person and you are stressed for time, right? You have that you can just send over to that new hire, and they're able to just view that and give you a little bit of time to be able to work on your own tasks.
That's great advice from both of you. Um, let's see if we have anything else that's coming in. If anybody has any final questions, so I'd love to do a virtual co-working and the onboarding in the beginning. That way they watch what I do while I do it. Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And hey, Pollyanna. Pollyanna was on our last webinar.
Yeah, it's
Um,
great.
no, that's really good advice. Um, all right. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have for today, unless there's any last minute tips or advice, Amy and Caprice, that y'all want to share. But no pressure. It's been a great session today. Thank y'all so much for everything. This webinar was recorded, so we will share that after the event. And we're also going to share a short survey that we'd love for you to take to let us know about this webinar, but also about future topics that you'd like to learn about. And if you want to continue the conversation with Amy, Caprice, or anybody on our team, to reach out directly. Always good. Uh, but yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Katie.